Alright, this is a demonstration of ProxMox running on my HP ProLiant DL380G7 server. Now, what I actually did was erase TrueNAS off of the disk and install ProxMox. And I purchased a new server. I also purchased a new Ethernet switch. So I will do a video on those as soon as they arrive. So, let's talk about ProxMox. What the heck is ProxMox? It's a Type 1 hypervisor. And what that is, it's basically, you see VirtualBox down here. Now, that is what they call a Type 2 hypervisor, so it relies on a host operating system and the resources on the computer to run the virtual machine. However, this is a Type 1 hypervisor, and it uses the server's resources to run virtual machines. And you can run a ton of virtual machines at once on a Type 1 hypervisor, at least on this system. So the computer that I'm actually running this web client off is my 2010 Mac Mini. We can go up to about this Mac here. I can show you. So it's got the 2.4 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo and 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the stock 320 gigabyte SATA disk. This is just my test machine, and so I figured I'd just kind of demonstrate it, on this machine to show you that it is not relying on any resources, any system resources. So I've got a couple of VMs here. I've got Arch Linux, FreeBSD, Windows 10, and Fedora. So if we click on each one of these, it'll take a second to kind of load each of the things, but we can see here that this is running, and then all we have to do is, provided that this will work, we can just hit start. And as soon as it's started, we can pop a console, and I can show you, and it will auto resize to the window, so it'll run at resolution, and we can see that this is not relying on any of the resources. It's just purely off of this now, off of this server. So the display resolution is a little bit messed up, I realize, but I'm going to fix that here to show you. So let me just log in, and I can demonstrate this once I fix the resolution. It is kind of messed up here. So we can see it's logging in fine, and if we go to Activity Monitor, an Activity Monitor might not open, I realize, because I'm running OBS and Chrome and all that at the same time. So that might not work. So let me just actually, oh, it didn't even open. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so let's fix this display resolution, and then I can show you exactly what is happening with this. So let's just do this. And the nice thing is you can run it at full 1080p, but if you try to enter full screen in the window, it'll automatically exit. So that is annoying, to say the least. You can't necessarily do that, but let's just do 1280 by 800. I think that's a good resolution to work with, especially now that we can see kind of the other window here. So let's go to here, and it is a little slow, obviously, because I am running OBS, so it is needing to do that. However, we can go down to summary, and we can see that it's using the server's resources. We're using 28% of the RAM, 5% of the CPU, 5% of the disk, and I've got one around 1 terabyte of storage on here. So we can see the VM is actually it's actually not that bad. An Activity Monitor just opened, which we don't really need. So let's test here and go into Task Manager. Now I did try actually a Windows 11 VM. That unfortunately didn't work, and it stuck at 15%, and then it just kind of kind of restarted, and I couldn't really do anything, and it was just kind of stuck in a boot loop. So anyways, so we've allotted 16 gigabytes of RAM to this virtual machine, and the CPU, I believe, is the native E5645. So we are, in fact, using the E5645. We're not using all of the cores. I noticed we have 8 threads, rather. 4 cores and 8 threads allotted. The graphics is obviously not great. Now, what you can do is you can actually pass through a dedicated GPU to ProxMox, and it does have some caveats. You can't do this. You can't VNC. You actually have to set up a remote desktop service. But you can use a dedicated GPU and install drivers and then kind of run a render server, like a game server or something, on this. So it's just completely offloaded. And then the other thing you can do is, if you have that, you can set up another file server, maybe a different piece of hardware, and then you can totally just offload projects and just crank out renders just on the server. And I figured, like, NVIDIA, even the GTX 1650 Super, the spare card that I have, is actually pretty decent, and can render some Blender scenes pretty quickly. Resolve's a little slow on it just because it's it's not a high end card by any means, but so that is something I might experiment with at some point. But you can see this is running perfectly fine, and we can drag it around. We can even throw this on another display. So like if we hooked up another display to this Mac Mini, we can hook up, or throw the VM on another monitor. Now you can actually change a couple settings, obviously with the VM off, so I won't do that, but you can actually change a couple of settings. So the other really cool thing about ProxMox, there are a couple of things. You can run a cluster. So you can do storage cluster with Ceph, or you can do a high availability cluster with this cluster, and you can actually run multiple ProxMox nodes. And we can see, if we scroll up, this is the node that we are running. We're only running one because we only have one physical server. However, if we wanted to, we can use high availability and be able to cluster, and then have like a 48 core like virtualization cluster that we can just run, possibly like, dozens of VMs at a time, because it would have 48 cores and like 512 gigabytes of RAM if we cluster. And then you can also do storage, like I said, if you have Ceph. That is a little bit quirky. I have watched a couple videos on it, and it does seem a little bit kind of unreliable in some cases. But enough about the clustering, which is pretty insane. Again, you can have like a 48 core virtualization thing if you wanted. You can just throw ISOs on here. So like if we wanted to throw this ISO on here, we can. I'll demonstrate that for you. We can throw an ISO, and I will just wait for this and do the neat little Mac OS trick. I don't know if you can drag the source file into the system dialog. It'll jump right to that location. So let's do this, and we can just hit upload, and it'll go a little slow, especially on this Mac Mini, but it is running fine, I think. I hope it's not dropping a ton of frames, but we can see, this is uploading right now. I'm actually going to shut down this Windows virtual machine because we don't really need it at this point. And again, you can do a ton of other things. Now, what I was actually planning on doing too is running a netboot, and then this Mac Mini can be a netboot client, and my Mac Pro can be a netboot client, because you can actually run, you can see this image that I have here, This is an 80 gigabytes massive image, but I have that just on this local disk, and if I wanted to, I can do a Linux VM, CentOS, I think is what it supports, and run the BSD Pi script, which is basically netboot on Linux, and I can run that in a VM, and then have this be, netboot client, and I can boot, multiple Macs off the same netboot volume. So that'd be a nice way to kind of get, multiple Macs kind of reinstalled, maybe, or something. But it was actually deprecated in 2018, so you aren't able to, natively do this. Like if I try to do it on my Monterey Mac, actually I can show you. Let's see if I can get, well, just while this is uploading, if I can get screen sharing here on this, and I want to enable it for all users. So now I should. I'll go in here. I'm going to show you what happens if I try. So let's do this. Share screen. I can try to get this up here. So here's my Mac. Let's see. I'm just going to do this. All right. Here's my Mac. Now the utility is system image utility, and if we search for system image utility, it doesn't even exist on the disk. So we also can't boot off netboot volumes. Now what you might be able to do is go in here and run. This is a really scary command. You can run bputil and have this kind of change the policy all the way down, but it still won't be able to boot natively off there. So that is that. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and so we aren't able to do that, unfortunately, but I went off on a bit of a tangent there, so I apologize. But that was important to mention, I think. Just making sure this is running. It looks like it's running. Yeah. So if you want to kind of test this, maybe on a different Mac, on a different Mac, on a just a computer, you can install ProxMox and get that up. I think I accidentally canceled it, which I didn't mean to. But what you can also do is download an ISO image, which is really weird. I haven't really tested it, but you can download an ISO image directly to this kind of repository here, and we can see once it had been downloaded, we can do that, and it would work fine. And then we would be able to just do a VM right from there. So ProxMox, like I said, is really, really cool. And again, it just uses resources from the server, and we are able to do that perfectly fine, and run this perfectly fine on this system. This is, again, an HP ProLiant DL380G7, and it works, works like a charm. It really does. So that is ProxMox for you. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the node because I don't need it anymore. So I'll just shut it down remotely. That is ProxMox for you, and I hope you enjoyed this and found this useful. And so, yeah, I just figured I'd kind of dig out this Mac Mini and kind of show you how it works. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something out of this.